but they're all rapid, so to be very easy to catch and long back straight with a toe. The middle sector is just cut. You know, me and Ubarakula went side by side earlier, but it was so hard to like not make contact. The cars are huge as well, which doesn't help. But yeah, they're it's difficult to overtake, but we should be able to do it.
I think that's been one of my highlights of the day so far. You know, literally you two within millimetres of each other, not even touching, going through turn 4 and then through 5, 6, 7 and 8. But it's been a great effort by you guys to, 2019 SRES champions. You know, it is at the moment myself and David were talking, and he said, yeah, it looks like that they've had a bit of a miracle. I said, they didn't have a miracle, they had you behind the wheel, and Adam is giving just as good as you are. So we can only wish you the best for the rest of the race, Callum.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, obviously lap one, if we didn't have that, we would have been leading, I think, by quite some margin, because we have clawed it back. But it's given us something to drive for, because when you're leading and you're pulling away, it can lead to mistakes because you do relax. But we've been able to, every time we've got in the car, we've had a target. So, and we can always see the time coming down to the next car and stuff like that. And with the pit stops, because we're out of sync, no one else really knows what we're doing. So it's made it quite interesting in that sense, like who's going to make it, because Fordzilla, they're not saving fuel at all. They're absolutely going for it, and they're only doing 22 lap stints. Everybody else is doing 23. So they might do themselves over at the end of the race, which is a bit of worry for them, but it's not for me, but it's for them.
I think it's very much the case where it kind of reminds me of the Peugeot Audi battles with the 90H HDI and the R18 e-tron Quattro. Yeah, well, I'm showing my age a bit now, mate. I'm a little bit older than you, but Peugeot were trying to go flat out, but they ended up breaking down at the end of it all. But listen, mate, thanks for chatting to me again, and wishing you and Adam all the very best of luck for the rest of the race, mate.
That's all right, thank you very much, cheers.
David, I think it's time for you to have a little bit of a break, my friend, isn't it?
I'm happy for if you want to have a break first, my friend. We're both in this for the long haul.
You go for it, mate, you go for it. So let me know when you're back, my good man, because we are 4 minutes and 15 seconds away from hitting the halfway point of the first of 5 rounds of the championship. So for those that have joined us for the second half of the stream on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us back again. It's Alex Goldschmidt with my esteemed colleague, Mr. David Christie, taking a well-earned breather for a few moments whilst we get a bit of a respite. We have been going strong since around about 10:40 this morning, but at the moment, Team Fordzilla leading the way. We are about 6 laps away from hitting the magic double century barrier very, very soon indeed. We're on 193 laps at the moment as things stand. They are currently leading Cam Sports in the number 5 car by just over 48 seconds, and Adam Tierney running in the Radicals Online car, the number 7. As looks like we've got Barracuda now coming to the pit lane from 4th position on the road of anti-racing. Not too sure where they are behind, but they are they're actually ahead at the moment. So the good thing is, Barracuda now drops down into, they're in 5th position at the moment. Canan Cancel Apex, Lamarty Racing and E-Team Brit round out the 8-strong grid. So for those that have not yet managed to join the Simply Race Endurance Series party, you can head to simplyrace.co.uk/SRES if you want to get interactive with us on social media. If you are on one of the relevant streams throughout the rest of this second part of the stream here on YouTube, but also for those that are still joining us on the respective streams, please make sure to throw your comments into the chat. We have had quite a few people interacting with us throughout the course of the day. And Barracuda looks to be a standard pit stop for them at the moment, as we are 2.25 minutes away from the halfway point. And the calendar. Today is the first of 5 rounds, the 12 hours of Buddh International. Then it is Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari in Imola in Italy, 28th of November for GTE racing for 6 hours. And then it is back to the Daytona Prototype International class on the 8th of January 2022. where Road America, Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin in the United States of America will host round 3, the midway point of the season, for the 6 hours. And then it is Portimao, the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve, not too far from Faro International Airport by about an hour and a bit. GTE action for the penultimate round on the 2nd of April 2022, and the 5th and final round twice around the clock around the feared 7.004 kilometre circuit, simply known as Spa-Francorchamps. Top 7 in the standings at the end of the 4 rounds coming into the final round of the championship will go into the Daytona Prototype International class. And the remaining teams on the grid will head into GTEs, and that will be 2 times around the clock for them. So, with halfway through the race, we still have plenty of twists in the tail to come, and realistically, from my perspective, having sampled the fantastic atmosphere, I think David's probably going to be he's kicking himself a little bit, because he's working up north in Scotland, and I'm down here at the fantastic Simply Race facility here in Milton Keynes, just off the hub in the main part of Milton Keynes Central. So you can head to simplyrace.co.uk if you want to get involved with some of the respective special offers that Simply Race do host on a regular occasion. You can also come in for maybe even just a 20-minute session behind the wheel, like I did back in the latter part of July this year. It was my first visit back to the new facility in Milton Keynes, and it has been a real pleasure coming back here again for this. And now we hit halfway. 6 hours done, 6 hours to go. And with the way things stand, Team Fordzilla are leading. Radicals Online just behind by about 68.2 seconds. Camsport in third. Avanti Racing, Barracuda, and then it's Cadan Casual Apex, Lamati Racing, and E-Team Brit bringing up the rear. So the good thing is that from this perspective, hopefully we are looking forward to welcoming back Red Shell Racing, the duo of Stuart Ross French and Tim Lane, who had to withdraw suddenly. Very, very close to this, but we have seen some mentioning from Stuart Ross French, so good to hear from him on the YouTube chat, the Restream chat, all the way through. A little bit earlier on in proceedings, so glad to hear you're feeling a bit better, Stuart, and we look forward to seeing you back for round 2 alongside Tim Lane. But with the strategies, the way they have been, it has been a case of mechanical sympathy, and now the sun is starting to set. The headlights now on all Daytona Prototype Internationals. Now, this car was unveiled back in late of 2016 before joining the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship for the 2017 season. It is the most successful in the DPI class as it stands thus far. And quite a few teams do use that particular vehicle within IMSA, and it has become a mainstay. It's being looked at and used by a multitude of manufacturers, including Honda, or Acura as it's known in the United States, for their more premium branding. And then you've also got Mazda that decided to join the DPI brigade. They have subsequently, that was done through Ralf Jöttner and Sport, who were formerly with the Audi Le Mans program, headed up by the legend that is Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich, through the bigger days of LMP1, where hybrid became part and parcel of what we now see in the World Endurance Championship. But drivers are continuing to push around this fantastic circuit. 5.125 kilometers in length, that's 3.185 miles. And with the way things are standing, when we hit the 200-mile marker, we will have completed over 630 miles of racing. And that is through the leaders, Team Fordzilla. So don't worry, you don't need to get your calculators out. That'll be 637 miles once Fordzilla have completed 200 laps of this circuit. So 2 12-hour races, 2 6 hours, and a 24 And in terms of the amount of racing that we have over the course of this season of the Simply Race Endurance series, you're going to basically have the best part of 2.5 full days of racing. So plenty more action still to come. For those drivers that love racing on R-Factor 2 and want to get involved, head to simplyrace.co.uk/SRES. You can also, if you're going to interact with us on Twitter and also on Instagram, maybe even if you type in Simply Race on Facebook, use the hashtag SRES. So still very much the case. Now, when it gets into nighttime racing, we'll have the floodlights. We will have a very, very different dynamic. And the biggest thing is that the drivers are going to have to adapt. So the triple monitor setups that we have here at Simply Race, partnered with the Thrustmaster equipment that are being used, what they will have to do is adapt and overcome the transition. And what that will provide is very much the case of having colder temperatures. Now, colder temperatures, that is going to play a little bit more of a dynamic with regards to how the cars react. And especially if you come out of the pit lane on cold rubber, you've got to be a little bit more than just treading on eggs. It's going to be treading on eggshells thereof. And the reason being is that the tyres will take a little bit longer to come up to temperature. Another benefit for the cars, because it is a 5.5 litre, 580 brake horsepower engine, the cooler air will help with regards to the way that the engine will respond. Now, I have seen it before in other R-Factor 2 championships where there has been an accidental double D-clutch which has blown the transmission and then caused a problem with the driveline. But the thing is that mechanical sympathy, the drivers will be adjusting their driving styles to compensate, and the teams will be speaking to each other, the drivers will be speaking internally with each other, having a chat about it and making sure that they do their level best just to keep it on the black stuff. We don't want anyone going off the circuits, and when that transition happens between sunset to nightfall, it can come about very, very suddenly indeed. And I haven't got, if anyone was to ask me with regards to a prediction on who is going to win, well, at the moment on the form books thereof, at the minute, Fordzilla leading Radicals Online by just 70 seconds. That is effectively, I mean, a lap around the circuit around about a 1:40. So you're looking at the best part of effectively 2/3 of the lap here, and that's quite a lot of distance when you think about it. But it depends on when a particular driver gets put behind a wheel, and then all of a sudden they say, right, okay, go and close that gap. And most drivers will do that. And, you know, they'll see the red mist a little bit. It's granted. It doesn't matter whether it's in real life or sim racing. The same approach applies. And here in the Simply Race Endurance Series, it is no different. And that is what we could find out into the latter part of the race, but we still have 5 hours, 53 minutes and 21 seconds to go. And Barracuda making their way down the long back straightaway between turns 3 and 4. A lot of undulation. David compared it to the Döttinger Höhe at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. In some respects, yeah, I quite agree, but the Döttinger Höhe, I don't think, well, from a visual perspective, when I've seen it, I mean, I've never been to the Nordschleife. I've been to the Nürburgring. I haven't been to the Nordschleife. I've never driven on the Nordschleife. It is on my bucket list. As Barracuda pushing the limits. Oh, they nearly lost the back end a little bit there to the right-hand side. That was going through turn 9. But in all matter of fact, the good thing is that these drivers now have still got a lot of work to do. It's not over yet. These drivers are pushing. And if I'm completely honest here, they are not going to stop. They might be starting, you know, the tidus will probably start settling in, depending on, you know, if drivers are being kept fresh, if they're rotating every stint, that could be a real pivotal decision in terms of strategy to make sure that they keep things on a consistent level. And when you have that consistency, as I've explained this earlier on in the broadcast, and when David asked me to reiterate that point a bit earlier on, it really is the case that if you keep it consistent, it's not about just winning the races. I mean, Fordzilla are keeping that gap at a very, very respective pace, but who can challenge them? That is the key question here. Can Radicals Online do, as one of my very good friends and fellow commentator Henry Burdett says, do a top gear from the rear, because they were out of it with 20 minutes of the race completed. Avanti Racing could have factored in as well, and Avanti Racing started on the front row of the grid. So it doesn't matter how many moments you might have, but it's about keeping it consistent. So the lap times are they're still very, very rapid. But when you look at the transition, the lap times, could they drop off ever so slightly? Could drivers get caught out by changing tyres during the pit stop phase? It is difficult to understand what a driver goes through when they're warming up these tyres, but they will be trying to get them up to temperature as much as humanly possible. But Barracuda still circulating, pushing the limits of adhesion. But we have had two teams already pinged, and they've had their respective penalties for track limit cuts. So 10 minutes into the first hour of the second half of the race. So 6 hours already done and dusted. A lot of dust being kicked up by Barracuda at points on the circuit. But, to give them their credit where it's due, that they haven't lost their spirit. They haven't lost their motivation just to keep going. And I think if every single team finishes this race, I think everyone, in my book, everyone will be winners, because it doesn't matter when. Okay, people will say, well, yeah, if you're first, you last, like they say, with, what was it, Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. Okay, fair enough. But an endurance race is always celebrated, and particularly the 24 hours of Le Mans. It doesn't matter if you finish first or you finish 33rd. It doesn't matter. You get to the end of that race, and it is a sense of achievement. And these drivers have now really put themselves through the ringer, and I would understand that my esteemed Scottish colleague, Mr. David Christie, is back in the house. David, are you there, buddy?
I certainly am, Alex. Thank you so much for that break. I don't know about you, but that was absolutely needed after an amazing and enthralling 6 hours. And where do we go from here, Alex?
Well, the night time is coming, David, and it's coming through thick and fast. I can see shadows on the circuit, and all the DPI Cadillacs have their headlights on. So I was explaining to the viewers at home about the changes between going from, air temperature was 34 degrees for the first 6 hours, and now that we've got the sunset coming in, I mean, just looking at the shadows going back from the rear, that big rear wing with that shark fin in between on Barracuda, the shadow lines now coming through. It's just really, really nice to see. You get a real good sort of emphasis on the transition from daytime to nighttime, and especially when you go from sunset through to the night. It's going to be rather enthralling, because the cooler temperatures might catch out teams coming out of the pit lane when they put on new fresh boots.
100%, and again, it's just another dynamic, another variable to add to things, isn't it? And as the darkness falls, the track temperature falls, the air temperature falls, and maybe so does the levels of concentration. But like I say, 6 hours we've got left to go, 5 hours 45 to put it bluntly. I think Fordzilla are looking in control right now. Bless them, Radicals have done an amazing job at charging through, but at the moment, I think Fordzilla really have this by the scruff of the neck.
They do, and it's theirs to lose. It really, really is theirs to lose. And from that perspective, David, it's it's not going to be easy. I mean, Fordzilla have been at an absolute rocket ship pace. You know, granted, Cam Sport, the two dramas that they've had, it looks like, Lamarcy Racing now have pitted, and they're currently in P7 at the moment. And, this is where these drivers can, really start pushing. But it is about how they handle the transition between the respective side of things.
And a great job saying that we've almost got our live timing back up and running, so we'll be able to go off of that rather than the timing tower and getting caught out with that. But I mean, 5 hours 45 left to go. As we said, Cam Sport, I feel almost a little bit bad for Cam Sport because they've been caught up in the thick of it, but in all intents and purposes, they've kind of, I don't know, they've made it very difficult for themselves through some of the earlier issues that they had. Avanti Racing have made one hell of a comeback to get themselves back up into P4 and just a lap down on things. But I think it is between the top three. I think coming into the final half of the race, it is all about them.
Yeah, it is indeed. And Emily Wilson saying, "Come on, Cam Sport, over halfway now. It looks like she's ditched the dissertation. Good on you there, Emily." I'll be wondering if Matt Goodger-Scott has managed to get onto his mojitos yet.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. That'll be I'm quite interested to see if that actually does happen.
Yeah, we'll probably find out from him in probably about an hour or two when he's had a couple.
Or you hear a hick on the chat. But talking of which, Alex, I think you're very much overdue for getting a little break for yourself, my friend.
Indeed, I'll be back very soon, so take it away, Mr. Christie. The floor is yours, as they say.
Thank you. I shall try not to butcher it too much, but a very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are for the second half of the 12 Hours of Buddh International, and what a race we have had as opening round. We couldn't ask for anything more from Simpler Races Endurance Series Season 4 Round 1. David Christie taking over for a couple of minutes. Let Alex get a little bit of respite, a little bit of relaxation, and hopefully get himself something to eat as well, because it's been thirsty work and it's been hungry work as well. Emily, glad to hear that your dissertation is nearly completed. It's fine. Mañana, leave it till tomorrow. Enjoy this. This is certainly going to be far more exciting anyway. This is watching Barracuda then in 5th position. As we said, track condition starting to evolve rapidly as we see Radicals Online having completed a pit stop then. Now that drops them down into 3rd position, but 14 seconds behind Camsport. Now what's going to happen here is that they're going to catch up to the back of Camsport, and if they can get past them on the track, then that means that is a pure pass for position, because at the moment the strategy isn't really tying up between Camsport and Radicals Online. And what will happen is that if Radicals can make that pass stick, then it won't matter what strategy they're on. In fact, it'll just boost the lead that Radicals have, because Camsport will have to pit in the next, I would imagine, 20 minutes to go. So 5 hours 43 left to go. Now I worked out that there was roughly 9 pit stops that would need to be taken on a 6-hour race at that 40-minute interval. So 9 pit stops. Let's see how that pans out. It could be 8 if obviously they've taken it further out. But that's going to be a very interesting thing. Now, what you'll want to watch for as well is watching that gap between Camsport and Radicals Online come down very, very quickly indeed, because that gap will come down very, very fast. And really, really enjoying what we are seeing here just now. But this is Camsport then, as we said, in that second place, and again, Fordzilla, the only car on that lead lap. Which kind of makes sense because it is the leader after all. Radicals Online though really doing their best to try and throw the cat amongst the pigeons. 15 seconds is not a lot of time actually to bring down over the next 5 hours. Oh, and a big power slide there from the red and white third place car there. And I'm loving the fact that we're watching the race, we're watching YouTube as well. And I'm also getting pinged on my phone from the WhatsApp group of our broadcast team who are busy behind the scenes trying to decide what they want for supper. Guys, if it's up for a vote, I'm thinking pizza is on the cards for you guys tonight. That sounds like a plan on that one. Of course, you have to get a Hawaiian because you have to just ruin the pizza. So, let's get back to the action on track. We can see that still with the red and white car of Radicals Online, and again just hustling every inch of that track that he dare take actually, and hitting the curb and really doing things that I would be way too scared to do with the car right now. But yeah, cracking job underway for them to try and bring that gap back down. I think it's going to be about 20 laps. If he can get onto the back of Cam Sport, then I think they'll make very, very short work of it indeed. So the Cadillac DPI is the weapon of choice for our first race today. And remember, we switched to the GTE class in round 2 at Imola at the end of November for our next race. So just 2 months time before we get reunited again, and things will have changed massively, and I've got no doubt that we'll see a full lineup of 15 cars onto the grid. For that, we've got a yellow flag in sector 2. Who is that's brought out the yellow flag? It's brought back in, so it was a very, very brief yellow flag there. We'll have a little look and see who that was in just a minute. But, I mean, that is the thing. And, we spoke about that earlier on with Alex, and we'll maybe have a chat about it again later on. But the thing with endurance races that he mentioned when I was on the break was about how it's celebrated, a finish is a finish, and it absolutely is. So from my own experience, I took part in the Citroen C1 24 Hours at Silverstone in real life, and that was my first and only ever full-on endurance race, and we finished 80th or something out of 100 cars, and I swear to God, it felt like a win for us. When that car came across the line, I've never felt excitement, happiness, exhilaration like it. And in sim racing, very similar experience on a different platform, the iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona, and it's exactly the same feeling. That thrill, that excitement, that joy, that adrenaline pulsing through you is just unbelievable. And I tell you what else is unbelievable. Radicals Online have just fired in a 139.830. Oh my goodness me. They are absolutely setting things ablaze right now. That is the fastest lap of the race, and by some margin as well. They're hunting down Camsport at a rate of knots, and we have got a race on our hands. I've got to say, I think it is outside probability, but Radicals Online right now are still putting themselves in the hunt for this race win right now. In Camsport, you can see the way that car is being driven. They've seen that fastest lap has gone up right now, and they are lighting the touch papers as well. So a 12-hour race with 8 cars, you would be forgiven for thinking that it would be a very dull, monotonous affair. My goodness me, have we shown that it is definitely anything but right now. As the sun begins to set here in the virtual recreation of India, the track temperature falling drastically, and a wonderful, wonderful shot there of the sun setting here at JP Sports City in India for the 12 Hours of Buddh International Circuit. What an opening round we've had for this championship. A fantastic effort from all of the drivers here. But the story is all about Team Fordzilla. faultless, absolutely faultless drive from them through this first half of the race. They need to extend that momentum now into the final 5.5 hours as the sun is setting here. Will their chances fade? That is what the question is, and we'll find out very, very shortly. We briefly had a yellow flag in Sector 2 there, but that has been withdrawn. I will keep an eye on that one. So again, the gap between Camsport and Radicals Online coming down very, very quickly. I've got a feeling that might have been Lamati actually bringing out the yellow flag, because E-Team Brit have taken about 20 seconds off of them in the past. In fact, that's a car going very slow without a rear wing. That looks like Lamati then. The number 12 team, who have had absolutely miserable luck through this race. Down in 7th place has been issue after issue for them, and that almost certainly is the rear wing gone from that car and having to limp home. So they're going to be very, very lucky not to get into any more strife on this one. And on cue then, Lamati into the pit lane there to fix that damage. That's almost certainly going to hand 7th place back to E-Team Brit, and that's a great, great job for them, because they've been struggling as well. But a good effort there from E-Team Brit to get that one done, if that is what is actually going to unfold. I'm keeping an eye here, because there was a brief yellow flag. I think that was a car going very, very wide. That might have been the Kadan Casual Apex car, but we'll keep an eye out on that. But let's have a look at this replay then. This is going to be the Lamati car, the 7th place car, and again, just too much speed. And oh my goodness me! A huge hit. That car airborne sideways into the barrier. And that was a massive hit, and it's going to spin again, almost certainly because of that lack of rear wing. And goodness me, that was one of the hardest hits I think I've seen in this race so far. That was a monster crash from the Lamati team, and yeah, that is... by which point, I've got to be honest, it might be a Thrustmaster wheel that they're using, but if it's in my house, that wheel's going straight out the window at that point, because the rage and the frustration are just immense. And I'd be very surprised to see if he's actually even able to get that through without any further issue. But he did get into pit lane. We saw him jumping into pit lane, but I just cannot believe that happened. That is... well, kind of predictable, but unfortunate in nonetheless. So Lamati now 72 seconds behind E-Team Brit, and that changes everything. That now promotes E-Team Brit up to 7th place here. This, though, is all about Fordzilla. They are just on it like the proverbial car bonnet right now. They are doing very, very well to keep things going here, and yeah, it's an absolute joy to see and to watch this unfold in front of our very eyes. So Fordzilla still ahead of Camsport, still ahead of Radicals Online. That gap down to 10 seconds. That is scary stuff. We'll keep an eye on Radicals Online in about 5 minutes time, because they will be right onto the back of Camsport. Avanti Racing in 4th position, Ubarakuda in 5th, 6th place for Kadan Casual Apex, E-Team Brit in 7th place, and Lamati in 8th position. Just listening to this car heading through the Cadillac DPI, it's just such a beautiful sounding machine. We'll let it turn the corner and have a listen to this engine. Oh, that roar is so good. And, you know, arguably our Factor 2 has one of the best sound packs, I would say, in sim racing. It just sounds so good to hear that DPI roaring into life there. Good evening to everyone on the YouTube chat just now. To Emily, who is still watching, who's just given up with her dissertation. To Joan Cripps, who is celebrating the excellent work done by Callum and Jack for Radicals Online. I tell you what, that is an understatement. The work they have done is nothing short of heroic. Of course, Callum and Adam doing a brilliant job there, and it's Adam Tierney that is in behind the wheel of the Radical just now. One of the only two driver team that is in this field, so an extra strong weight on their shoulders, given how much they have to work for this. So fantastic effort there as we come up to the 5.5 hour mark. That gap now between Campsport and Radicals Online, 10 seconds. That is coming down quite rapidly. They don't have anybody else to worry about behind them because Zoo Barracuda are 2 laps down, and then it's Avante Racing, Cadan Casual Apex, E-Team Brit and Lamati Racing as well. And again, just watching the very loose way that Campsport are able to throw that car about. Not as loose as the Radicals car seems to be, but certainly seems to hold pace to that. I thought Campsport for a minute there was going into the pits, but they are very shortly, and that is pit lane though for Team Fordzilla, so they're already in for about 17 seconds. And just watching them going into to pit lane just now, and just also Jack is on the other team, so don't cheer him on. Right? Okay. Well, yeah, we're not going to push. It's fine. I'm presuming by Jack they mean Jack Ashton then, who is in Team Fordzilla in the lead of the race. So that's not very nice. It's not very sporting there, Callum. You've got to wish him luck. He's also just discovered that his mum has a YouTube account, and yeah, that's an awkward conversation to have, isn't it? Goodness me. Right. So let's have a look. So Fordzilla are out of the pit lane then, and they come out with what's that? About a 58-second lead. So that gap then is still 66 seconds between Fordzilla and Radicals Online. That is absurd to see that it is just under 70 seconds. So Radicals are really pushing this through, and yeah, I honestly just don't know what on earth is going to happen in the final 5.5 hours left to go in this race. It is an awesome spectacle for sure. Don't go anywhere though, ladies and gentlemen, because you are not going to want to miss any of this at all. Now, one of the other things that is going to play a factor here is strategy. A lot of these teams are going to have pre-planned strategies out. They're going to have thought, well, we'll work to the finish time and we'll work backwards and try and plan our pit stops for that. But the first half hour kind of saw a spanner in the works with that, because obviously we had all of those incidents early on for a lot of the teams like Radicals Online. We saw Cadan Casual Apex getting caught up in it, and for a time E-Team Brit was actually up into 4th place and looking for a podium, but it wasn't to be for them. So as we said, 5.5 hours to go. In fact, if I do some very basic calculations here just now, then that means that we've got 5.5 hours left to go. So let's see, 5.5 times 60, and then if we divide that by 40, so just over 8, there's just over 8 pit stops to take from my very crude on the back of a napkin mathematics there. And Alex, welcome back. Firstly, did you enjoy your little break? And secondly, what do you think about that? Just over 8 pit stops left to go. How does that factor in with the fact that Fordzilla have just taken their pit stop?
Quite interesting. When I spoke to Callum Cripps a bit earlier on from Radicals Online, I mean, Fordzilla are literally doing 22 laps per stint, and some of the other teams are doing like 23, 24. So some are trying to do a little bit of fuel saving in terms of how they strategize things. So if Fordzilla it kind of right, I'm going to a little bit of a story. I mean, you remember when Peugeot were racing against Audi, the 908 HDI versus the R18?
Yeah.
E-tron Quattro, and when they went to Le Mans, Peugeot had won at Spa, and Audi were completely on the back foot, and then Peugeot just went full blast for as hard as they could for that 24-hour race, and it was a bit to their detriment. But you know, the way that Fordzilla are just consistently, they're keeping their drivers fresh. I touched on this a little bit earlier on. I had a quick chat with Charlie Cross, and he said, yeah, Sean's in next, so Jack Ashton will be getting out of the car. So by doing that, you're giving everyone an equal opportunity to just go out there and just put in a monster stint and just keep going. And sometimes when you double stint, the pace does drop off a little bit more. It plateaus, then it drops off a little bit more off the cliff, so to speak. So Fordzilla are going full blast. I mean, Cam Sport are within 57.7 seconds of them. Radicals Online closing in on them. They're about 7.4 seconds adrift. So there is still a very good way of looking at from this perspective, that having a strategy call that could work to your favour, and Callum had openly admitted after that incident earlier on that they're on the back foot with regards to strategy. But it's still all to play for. There's still under 5.5 hours to go. Nothing's yet written in stone.
It's not, but I actually wonder if this does put Radicals with a slight advantage, purely because I think they're almost going to be bang on the money in terms of, maybe unintentionally, but almost bang on the money in terms of pit stop strategy with the remaining time in this race. Whereas Fordzilla, maybe they've got to take an extra stop, or do they just do a splash and dash at the end?
Very, very true, and it could be crucial. And it looks like Barracuda now coming into the pit lane from fourth on the road, which will then re-promote Avanti back up into fourth place. Yeah, I mean, that could make all the difference.
Just watching as well, the gap between Camsport and Radicals Online now 7 seconds between them, but Camsport still holding on that minute lead. That's 67 seconds. I mean, that is almost identical to a pit stop. So essentially, Fordzilla really have a pit stop in hand almost.
Yeah, they do. But it's just about how Camsport and Radicals respond to that. They'll have an understanding of the strategy because of what Fordzilla are doing, and Fordzilla are pushing like crazy. They're consistent on their lap times, which is a good thing to see, and that's what you need. But it's how the others respond respectively on their respective strategies. And Camsport and Radicals, along with Avanti qualified on the front row alongside Camsport. And those last three teams I've mentioned have all had dramas in this first race. Fordzilla, it has been plain sailing for the moment.
Yeah, for the moment, an important caveat to add on to the end of that one. Beautiful sunset scenes here, the virtual recreation of Budd's International Circuit as the times start to dwindle by and the light becoming a bit of a premium now. Alex, the track changing to those nighttime conditions, and really that is a completely different kettle of fish in terms of concentration and the demands on the drivers, isn't it?
It is, because when the sun drops, the glare is going to come right into their peripheral vision, especially on the triple monitor setups here at Simply Race. So that is another caveat they've got to deal with. That's another thing that could throw a spanner in the works, so to speak. Sorry, just trying to make my way past Mike in the broadcast studio to come back into there. So yeah, I mean, just looking at the way things are at the moment, you can see that the sun is setting, and looking at it on the stream in comparison to, there's a lot of banter in the ET Brit Brigade over there. Max Spooner and Michael Tyler having a bit of a laugh between themselves about that. There is also banter behind the scenes here as well, plenty of it. But the thing is that looking at it from this perspective, I'm just going to get a real good idea of what these drivers are having to contend with. Venue side here, David, and the sun is not low enough yet to cause a problem with regards to their peripheral vision, but it could be a problem very, very shortly indeed, as Camsport now are in pit lane. Out jumps Christian Kelly, and Ben Brown now gets in behind the wheel.
So here we go, big changes aboard at Camsport then. Again, I mean, we've not really heard too much from Ben Brown from the earlier part of today. I mean, this is about the time, really, Alex, that you want to get your driver in, isn't it? Not when it's dark, but when it's at that transitional period. They can adjust and they can kind of evolve with the track as it actually happens as well.
It is indeed, and the difference is going to be made, I think, in possibly with 3 hours to go. You really get an understanding on who's going to be in contention for what positions. And hang on a second, I've just seen for the first time this race, we are into the 139s.
Yep. That was Radicals Online about 10-15 minutes ago. That was an absolute stormer of a lap there. And the fact that he came out of his pit stop and about 2 laps later set that, absolutely jaws were dropped.
Yours included, I bet. I probably thought I heard a jaw hitting the floor when I was outside having my comfort break.
That's definitely what happened there. I mean, that is just incredible pace to drop that in. I mean, look, the Radicals Online still just 68 seconds behind your race leader here. I mean, that is well within grounds to make you very uncomfortable if you're Team Forzilla.
Doesn't seem to be that they don't seem to be phased by that at all, because it's just calm and composed over here by Pod 1. It really, really is. And I think sometimes you just have to take things in your stride and just wait things to change. Callum Cripps is looking over Adam Tierney very closely, just seeing how he's getting on. And now the nighttime really starting to come in here, David.
Yeah, and just again watching Barracuda absolutely throwing that car around. Camsport now 61 seconds behind Radicals Online. And you've got to say, now that Radicals Online aren't chasing them.
Right, I don't know what
sorry
happened.
Sorry about that. I was going to say my cable. That was a complete stupid human error there. We'll pretend nothing happened.
As Callum Cripps would say, rookie mistake, Mr. Christie. Rookie mistake.
Oh, dearie me. That is, That is.
We know that someone that we work with closely would take the absolute mickey out of you right now, mate.
I know I'm feeling kind of left out right now. Where is all the? I'm feeling left out. What can I say? It's very easy to do. I just pull on the card from my headphones and just the whole thing pops out.
Whoops. That's an understatement of the day, isn't it, really?
It certainly is. It certainly is. Right, Camsport are dropping at a rate of knots from Radicals Online, but Radicals Online losing about 1.5 seconds on that last lap there to Team Forzilla. Now, do we think any of the teams are going to be loving the cooling track and the cooling temperatures, or is it going to throw a spanner into the works?
Right, well, I can tell you now that the air and track temperature were at a peachy 34 degrees when we started this race nearly 7 hours ago. The track temperature, David, has dropped by 5.7 degrees. So the first aspect, if you change tyres, you have got to be extra careful coming out of the pit lane. We have seen it multiple times today where drivers have come out of the pits and it has gone a bit south, let's say, as in Spinnerooneyville. But also, one of the other added benefits of cooler temperatures will provide more denser air going in to the into the inlets for the engine bay to allow that engine to breathe. That can sometimes add a little bit of prized performance for all these teams, and that's why we're seeing the lap times drop into the 139s.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic thing to watch anyway. But Camsport left maybe scratching their heads a little bit because they've just not been able to offer too much in way of competition to Fordzilla and to Radicals Online. But when it comes to it, I mean, if they were to be offered third place, I think they would snap your hand off to take it.
Yeah, they take that one to the bank. But yeah, it's still pretty interesting. The funny thing is, being here at the venue, not only seeing the drivers in pods, but also the screens that I'm actually seeing at the moment, David. I saw one of these brilliant shots. Now, the sun is really on the lower part of the horizon, and I think it was coming down the back straightaway between turns 3 and 4. That there was a DPI, and all of a sudden this massive burst of sunset light literally emblazoned the screen. I've just seen it again, and that was actually for Camsport. That was a brilliant shot, and that was coming out of turn number 16. So if only you were here, my good man, you would be watching exactly what I'm seeing right now.
Well, we get a good idea of it. It is just glorious to be watching that. But you can see rapidly how the light decreases here at Buddh International Circuit. A fascinating prospect. And yeah, this is just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just really, really interesting how, the drivers are still at full throttle. The commitment, the resolve, the motivation, still very much unresolved. And looking from the aspect of the driver viewpoint on the triple monitors that I'm just seeing, I'm actually just behind pod 5 where Camsport are at the moment. Where Camsport are at the moment, and it really gives you a real sort of a visceral, in-your-face sort of look at what these drivers are now having to combat, because I can now see the front headlights are putting a path down onto the tarmac here at this fantastic recreation of this Indian circuit.
It really, really is. It's going to make our jobs a little bit more challenging when the light diminishes to zero. But there's something about that bluey, pinky tint that just, it's so special. Having experienced that for in person, it's such a wonderful time of the day to be out on track for, because it just feels like an experience rather than an actual race that you're taking part in. And certainly for spectating, it's there's a reason they call it the golden hour, and that is definitely what we are experiencing right now. Let's give you an update then on second and third place. Radicals Online starting to bring that gap back down. Remember, it jumped over 70 seconds a couple of laps ago. It's now down to 68.2, but Camsport, that lap gap is going up in the different direction. That means that Radicals Online, if they were to pit right now, the chances are they would come out in the lead, ahead of Camsport. So it means that essentially on the track and off the track, they've made that move stick, and they've got that second place for keeps now, regardless of their different strategy.
A very, very well measured point there, David. I have to agree with you 100% on that. But the thing is that there's still just over 5 hours to go. It really, as with most endurance events, we've been waxing lyrical regardless on that we won't really have an indication. We could say that, yeah, Radicals Online could close in that gap. They could. But could Camsport close in on Radicals Online? Who's not to say the teams behind might have an opportunity if some team has an unfortunate spanner in the works thrown their way. And that can happen, because we're getting into that stage now where drivers are still talking between each other. I'm seeing a conversation between Christian Kelly giving directions to Ben Brown in pod number 5 there, with Chris Wilson looking over Ben's left-hand shoulder. But yeah, I think, you know, we're not at that stage where the drivers are starting to feel tired. That there are still smiles, there's still laughter, there's still banter, and it really makes it a good, you know, a community event, so to speak, because they're not going to, they're going to do everything that they can to keep themselves at that point where they're feeling pretty comfortable, and they're feeling within that zone where they know that they can go out there, but they're having to adapt now, and they're having to overcome the change because the night time has come in rather quickly.
Yeah, it's changing at a rate of knots here at Buddh International Circuit in India. This is the opening round then of Season 4 of the Simply Race Endurance Series, live on YouTube and on Facebook. If you want to get yourself involved in round 2, which is happening in 2 months' time at Imola in the GTEs, but when I say it's happening there, it's actually happening down at Milton Keynes. So in person, if you fancy getting a couple of your friends along and taking on some of these teams here, head over to simplyrace.co.uk. That's simplyrace.co.uk/SRAS, and we could be talking about you on track next time. 5 hours, 10 minutes left to go. Alex, I can't believe it feels like every time we look, it's then suddenly, and we're now nearing the end of this hour. Where is this time going?
Pass is the answer to that one I've got, really.
We've been talking for so long now, it's just a blur.
All I'm going to say is the last time we did this kind of length of an endurance race, and it was so funny. It was the SimGrid Brain Tumor Charity Race with Next Gen Racing, and you and I, we decided, well, yeah, we're going to be fine. We were both completely shattered, but the adrenaline high that we got off of it was absolutely brilliant, and that's what you want from this kind of sort of platform, this kind of ambience. And I think really to put the two events in context here, two very different atmospheric feels from my perspective being here at Milton Keynes, whereas with the Brain Tumor Charity Race we were doing that from home.
Yeah, we also don't have swathes of Eastern Europeans on YouTube chat shouting remove penalty 41 on this one, so it swings and roundabouts really on that one, Alex. It's it's quite peaceful on this, and I've got to say to everyone on YouTube chat, please don't change. We love you very, very much. Thank you very much. But no, that event that we did do, I mean, that was, I don't know about you afterwards, but I was done for about 2.5 days. It just wiped me out, but my God, what a buzz. And obviously the drivers, we'll tell the folks at home about the drivers and how they'll feel and the experience and the adrenaline that's bouncing through their veins watching this. We're sitting here and standing here and talking about this and getting all excited, and for as much as we're taking part in this, we're enjoying it just as much as the drivers, aren't we?
Yeah, I know. I just had a giggle with Callum Cripps because he went, yeah, I know. And he was looking at when he said when he mentioned about, Mum, since when did you get a YouTube account? I mean, that is one of the comments of the day.
We need Callum to dig a little further into that one, and
I'm sure that Inspector Cripps will be on the case. He'll have his gadget hat and his long trench coat on him very shortly, I'm sure.
Oh, dear me. Right, the sun is gone. The sun has said goodbye. The sun's got his hat on. Hip, 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 hooray.
He did.
Well, yeah, he's gone. He's off on holiday.
He's gone to Gran Canaria.
Yes, he heard the mojitos were good.
Yeah, so he got on a plane sharpish. But yeah, that has quickly dissipated. And now it's going to be quite interesting. But at least the good thing is the floodlights have started to show up on the circuit as well. Yeah,
so this is one of the good things about circuit, amongst many other things, is the fact that it is very well lit. It's not like the likes of, say, Silverstone, Alex, where some of it is frankly quite terrifying when you're pulling about that in the middle of the night. It's literally darkness.
I'm not going to bring back your PTSD with reminding you of a certain incident. You know the one I'm talking about.
No, but there's another one, because see, after that moment...
no, you get that one from me then.
Yeah, after that one, right, and I haven't really told anyone this, but after that spin, and I had to restart the car, I couldn't see anything, and I wondered if it was like maybe the fear. I was like, you know how your eyesight goes a little bit funny when you're like really stressed,
Yeah.
and I thought maybe it was that, and I couldn't concentrate. And then I realised I was driving with the side lights on. I didn't actually have my full beams on. that really didn't help at the driving at a night race. Yeah, never mind.
Oh, just when I thought I'd heard it all, Mr.
I know,
Christie,
right?
and you go out with that answer right there.
Professional racers, what are you going to do? 5 hours, 6 minutes left to go in this race. Fordzilla in control, up front, in charge. They have all the answers, and Radical Online, I tell you what, they've lost 3 seconds in the past lap and a half there, so it's looking comfortable. I'm not going to say it's in the bag, but Fordzilla are doing everything that they need to do right now. That's what Fordzilla are doing. Camsport, I think, are going to have to settle at this rate and at this current pace for third place. And then it's the battle of the rest of the field, really. Avanti Racing, surprising to see them back up into 4th place, but they're getting caught at a rate of knots by Barracuda, and I think different strategies for different pit stops are coming into play on that one, so we'll keep an eye and see what happens there, Alex.
Yeah, I just looked at the first sectors between Barracuda and Avanti Racing. Barracuda were nearly 1.3 seconds quicker through Sector 1. Make of that what you will, good sir.
They're going to make short work, is what I make of that one. So we'll certainly see as that one starts to come down. But again, Radical's bringing that gap down to 68 seconds again. So I don't understand how they're able to take 2.5 seconds almost off at will, given that they're going to be at different parts of the circuit. But in fact, there we go, Radicals Online. I was actually thinking something completely wrong there. But so that means then that Radicals Online, up until that point, were on the lead lap. But then, of course, they go into pit lane, and then they are going to be now a lap down. But more importantly, I'm very confident that they are going to leave pit lane comfortably by about maybe, say, 8 to 10 seconds ahead of Camsport.
You could very well be right there, David. I mean, we know how long the pit stops have been. 43 to 45 seconds in the pits when it's stationary for a standard pit stop with a full fuel load putting into the car, and then a lot of drivers deciding to go for fresh rubber on the vehicles. Yeah, so it's always swings and roundabouts with pit stop strategy. And good evening to the one, the only Mr. Bobby Trundley, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, they just let anybody in here nowadays, do they? Goodness me. Bobby, good to see you, my man. It's we need to get Bobby Trundley in a team on this. We need to get him firing about, because there would be absolute chaos, mostly because he'd be taking the podium for himself.
You know what we need to do? We need to get him and Luke Pound on as a team together, get a Team Brit entry in. I'm sure Dave Player might be able to oblige.
I think we absolutely need to make that happen. He'd love to have a shot in a prototype, I would imagine, but of course next round going to be GTEs, and we know he is a dab hand at the GT3s.
Yes, he is. I mean, he's racing he's currently racing the Nissan GTR Nismo GT3 in the Team Brit GT Challenge alongside Luke Pound in the sister car, but. We've commentated on him a multitude of times, David, and the good thing is that he never fails to leave the room without exciting everyone that's commentating on him.
Yeah, I still remember the first time I bumped into Mr. Bobby Trundley. It was an online race. It was Monza. It was turn 1, and he was on voice chat screaming like a girl because he'd went onto the grass and had no brakes on the entry to turn 1, and just went shooting across the track at about 90 miles an hour. Where the chicane turns right for the first corner. Well, he literally, it was such a meme, but yeah, great to see that.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that he's throwing out the right hooks towards you, Mr. Christie. He said it was quite literally a bump, wasn't it? And he said, I ain't that rapid. Well, if anyone might remember where Bobby Trundy started racing, Daytona Motorsport with the Daytona D-Max Championships. Had the honour and privilege of having a few interviews with some very choice words at times from the young man himself, but he is a credible racer in his own right, racing alongside Aaron Morgan in the Britcar Endurance Championship, Team Brit. Also running in the Britcar Trophies. They've got a couple of BMWs, including an M240i in the stable. Based out of Dunsfold in Surrey, too far from the Top Gear test track.
Now, you mentioned the Daytona series there, and actually I wanted to ask that all through the day today, Alex. You're obviously a very well-known and very well-respected karting commentator, and it's a world that's completely new to me. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how the racecraft and the competitiveness compares in the likes of karting to sim racing.
It's still as cutthroat as anything. You know, it doesn't matter what type of motorsport it is. It could be what we're doing here. It's the Simply Race Endurance Series. It could be a championship in karting. Every single driver worth their salt will go for it. And I mean, my last trip to a karting paddock, funnily enough, was the Pro Kart Raceland Circuit in Wackersdorf in the first weekend of September. Where we had the best part of about 100 drivers from just over 20 different nationalities, and elbows were quite clearly out around that circuit. I mean, Germany being my second home, being a dual national as well. Karting is just as cutthroat, and there are drivers. I mean, we've seen moves today, and then you see moves in karting that you sometimes realise, where on earth were they able to do that? And it's still an intrinsic part. It's the building blocks. It's the formation of where you start your motorsport journey for a lot of people. Our learned friend, Mr. Martin Buchan, as we were talking earlier, running in the British Pro Kart Endurance Championship, BPEC, running in Rowra this weekend. So it doesn't matter what category or class of motorsport you're in. It might be all smiles in the paddock, but it is just as hard fought and ultra competitive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously I went in straight to a tin top class, but I feel like I maybe missed that step out and could have done with learning the racecraft and learning the elbow to elbow fighting that you see in something like karting. But to go back to the point I was trying to make is the fact that I think that sim racing is an excellent way to cut your teeth and to learn those types of tight-knit racing and those abilities to be close with someone and to learn when to take that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Bobby competed for a multiple... I mean, thanks, Bobby, for the lovely comment saying, oh, you two are so kind. Yeah, karting and sim racing are just so close. Most of my best races are on the sim. Well, he was not slow by any stretch of the imagination when he was running in Daytona D-Max. As I said, commentated back on him in 2017. I then met him a couple of years later when he had gone with Team Brit. And you know what? That young man, to me, just showcases what is achievable. And, okay, yes, he is autistic, but the thing is that he has got a complete heart of gold. He's won 5 Daytona D-Max titles in heats and the Endurance Series. And realistically, you can start somewhere like karting. You can start somewhere like sim racing. It doesn't... To me, there is a learning of racecraft in any type of motorsport. It doesn't matter. You just got to find what's right for you. And if you love it enough, you're gonna commit to that. And that just goes to show how passionate, how driven these individuals are, even with this champion. Because there is prize money up for grabs on every single round of the championship. But the thing is that everyone will want to do their level best. And with the night time firmly in, with now going into our number, what is it? That's going to be, we've now completed 7 hours of this race. So we're now into hour 8 and we're just over 2 minutes into it, David.
Yeah, we certainly are, and it's been a fascinating, thrilling affair so far. This is Radicals Online, currently in second place, and you've got to be honest, they're looking very comfortable in second place. Camsport just didn't have an answer to the pace that they had in that car. But yeah, great to see. And I still think that with 5 hours left to go in this race, we could easily have a battle for the lead going on. How many times have we seen it in other championships and other platforms where the final 2 hours and the leader gets a drive-through penalty for track limits or crashes off, or in set-course competition, how often does the leader just disconnect?
Yeah, we've seen it before, and it's just one of those things. It's about, it's not always about how you start; it's how you finish, and that to me is just coming through to how it all goes. But with 4 hours and 56 minutes still to go on the clock here for the first round of this season of the Simply Race Endurance Series, Ford still leading the way, but the gap is still quite considerable between Radicals Online in second position, with Camsport rounding out the top 3. And from that perspective, we still have plenty of action still to go. Temperature has dropped from 34 degrees Celsius to 28. Nighttime very much part and parcel, and on the start-finish straights, the floodlights are ablaze, and the virtual fans in the grandstand, well, one half of it, as I'm just keeping an eye on what I'm seeing here at Simply Race, it sort of gets a bit down into the darkness when you go into turn number 1 off of the start-finish straights. But then through turn 2, the lights come back on again. And down the back straightaway, the floodlights above are not really illuminating the track. So it's mainly the headlights that the driver's having to do. This, in some respects, does, as I said earlier, this has to help them adapt. So they'll have already had a lot of running under the sunlight, but going into the night time is a very different proposition. You're really going to have your eyeballs on stalks. Now, this is where the tiredness factor will start to come in. And David, it's a completely different proposition altogether, because now I see every single pod, every single driver is using the headlights as a guide to get them through. The Trackers Fordzilla are about to complete another lap now.
Yeah, it is, and Lamate bringing out yellow flag in Sector 2 as well. In fact, at the side of the road there, so Lamate look like they've just completely stopped that car, and that is not what they want to see. I wonder if they've had some sort of technical issue, or if they've crashed the car again. I hope not, because as we say, bringing out the yellow flags there. Yeah, darkness is always a very, very difficult time. If we said that, we spoke earlier about distractions, Alex, and how drivers don't want to have any distractions when they're trying to focus, when they're trying to get into that rhythm and get into that zone. And my goodness me, do they not want any distractions when they're driving in the nighttime like this? Because what happens as a sim racing driver and as a driver in real life as well is you're constantly using, Alex, your peripheral vision for your reference point, for your braking markers, and in the dark those become next to impossible. You then go from looking at bits that are trackside to looking at bits on the road so that you can reflect and kind of just use them as your stopping markers, as Cadan Casual into the pit lane there. So it's so difficult, and I tell you what, the drivers that are doing nighttime stints, given that we've only got about 5 hours left to go in this 4 hours 53, they're going to be absolutely shattered after this particular bit of stints. What you can do, though, is you can find drivers that actually enjoy this part of the race, and maybe some of the teams have kept their nighttime drivers to do a full stint towards the end here.
Yeah, Phil Webb's just got behind the wheel, looks like, on Cadan Casual Apex. Sean Arnold, based out of Swansea in South Wales. I had a nice little chat with him a bit earlier on during my comfort break after you'd had yours when we changed from the first to the second of the stream itself, and Sean now gets out. Charlie Crossland about to jump back in. So it's rudimentary. Well, it's just sort of like a standard strategy call with regards to keeping the drivers fresh, as I said earlier on, and that's how they're keeping up the pace as they are.
Yep, race leader into to pit lane. Alex, what's happened to that Lamati team effort? In fact, we're away to have that question answered just now. I wonder if it's a hardware failure from that team, because they're going very, very slowly. And, oh dear.
Yeah, looks like there is an issue. I think the pod is not working at the moment, from what I see. Just had a brief information from Mike Yao, our broadcast director. So, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, you know, we're at that stage of the race. You know, 4 hours and 51 minutes to go. As I said, it's not over until the checkered flag flies. And the thing is, the teams are aware of this. They know this. It's part and parcel of endurance racing, that until you get across that line and you take that checkered, firstly, the big thing that happens is you get a big sigh of relief coming out of your lungs, and then you get that adrenaline crash. And then you just go, what have I just put myself through? And then you realise the sense of achievement. And as I said earlier on, David, the good thing is that you have a sense of achievement from it.
And then you fall asleep with a KFC while trying to eat it. that's normally the routine. Yeah.
Is that when you got one side of your head on the pillow, and the other one is where you're trying to sit upright in bed and you've got the KFC in your lap?
And you've got a boneless banquet resting on your cheek.
Oh dear.
Sorry, that was a bit TMI for you guys at home, wasn't it? That's really...
Please excuse my esteemed colleague, or steamed colleague.
That's the classiness coming out of me there. What can I say? It certainly is grown up days, Alex, from back when you were in your early 20s and it would be a kebab. But anyway, we digress.
You could go out for a night on the Raz, still have money for a kebab, and the bus ride home.
Do you know what? I was actually, we'll take a very slight tangent here. I was so late in my life when I discovered kebabs. I was like in my late 20s, early 30s. And I discovered like the whole thing of having a kebab after going for a night out. My God, everything changed that night. It was spectacular. Anyway.
You had an epiphany.
I did. It was a donor. But 4 hours, 50 left to go. And it's still Fordzilla.
You know what? The banter is going to be plentiful for the next 4 hours and 49 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. I can guarantee you of that much.
It's going to have to be, because